What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So it's that time again. It's Shit Weasel of the Week. We are now on episode 3. Now our last episode had 30,000 views, so nearly 10,000 more views than episode 1, which is amazing. This episode is actually a bit late, so let's just get straight into it. Now, as you may remember, last week's winner was the Biased Broadcasting Corporation for their Joe Brand acid joke fiasco, in which they decided to air a pre-recorded program featuring a joke that could incite certain idiots in society to commit actual political violence. It's made even more disgraceful by the fact it was aired during the same week as the 3-year anniversary of the murdered MP Joe Cox. And let's not forget, this spring has seen a spate of attacks on political figures by the leftist outrage mobs.
Would you not say, Joe, we are absolutely united in feeling we are living through a terrible time from a parliamentary point of view?
Well, yes, I would say that, but I think that's because certain unpleasant characters are being thrown to the fore, and they're very, very easy to hate. And I'm kind of thinking, why bother with a milkshake when you could get some battery acid? That's just me, and it's all right. I'm not going to do it. It's purely a fantasy, but I think milkshakes are pathetic. I honestly do. Sorry.
So, the BBC was a worthy winner among many other shitweasels. If you haven't seen that video, I suggest you go and watch it. So, let's get into the nominations for episode 3 of Shitweasel of the Week. And this is the Boris Derangement Syndrome edition. Now, our first nomination is going to be the MP Ian Blackford. This SNP tosspot thought it was a good idea to stand in the House of Commons and call Boris Johnson a racist because Boris intends to take the UK out of the EU with no deal if necessary. Of course, Ian Blackford, the complete fuckpig, is a dedicated Remoaner and virtual signalling septic spot on the arse of humanity, so we should expect no less from him. Let's check out his lowlights.
Ian Blackford! Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, words matter and actions matter. The man who published those words in his magazine, the Prime Minister thought was fit for the office of our top diplomat, and he hasn't stopped there. He said that Scots should be banned from being Prime Minister. Banned from being Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. And that a pound spent in Croydon was worth more than a pound spent in Strathclyde. This is a man who is not fit for office. It has been said, Mr. Speaker, the ultimate measure of a person is not where they stand in moments of comfort, but where they stand at times of challenge and controversy. This is a time of challenge, and so I ask, does the Prime Minister realise not only is the member racist, he is stoking division in communities and has a record of dishonesty. Does the Prime Minister honestly believe...
Order! If the right honourable gentleman is referring to a current member of this House, I don't know whether he is, but if he is, he should be extremely careful in the language he uses. He should have notified the member in advance. But I would urge him to weigh his words. Mr. Ian Blackford. And indeed, and I think it would be much better if, for now, he would withdraw any allegation of racism against any particular member. I don't think that this is the forum. I don't think it's the right way to behave. Mr. Ian Blackford.
Mr. Speaker, I have informed the member, but the member has called Muslim women letterboxes, described African people as having watermelon smiles, and another disgusting slur that I would never dignify by repeating. If that's not racist, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what is. Does the Prime Minister honestly believe that this man is fit for the office of Prime Minister?
Prime Minister!
Can I just say to the right honourable gentleman, he's now been leader of the SNP in this chamber for some time. He's been asking Prime Ministers questions for some time. He might actually understand the purpose of Prime Ministers' questions, which is to ask the Prime Minister about the actions of the government. That is what he should be asking us about. And I can say to the right honourable gentleman, that I believe any Conservative Prime Minister in the future will be better for Scotland than the Scottish Nationalist Party.
Now, let's check out our second nomination. So up next we have the Labour MP and race-baiting fuckpig David Lammy. This idiot thought it was a good idea to go on Twitter and claim it's okay to throw anything you have to hand at someone you don't like, following in the BBC editor's disgraceful footsteps when it comes to promoting hard left political violence. Now, our third nomination for Shit Weasel of the Week is the Marxist spunk trumpet Rachel Sharby. This dopey bint thought it was a good idea to promote her Marxist ideology and call for wealth redistribution and an end to capitalism in the UK. This entitled Pincushion also had the fucking audacity to claim that £17,000 a year or $23,000 a year is extreme poverty. Let's take a look.
That's because people can't climb up in a society that's unequal. And in Britain, which by some measures is one of the most unequal countries in Europe, we have inequality levels that belong to the 1930s. You can't tackle social mobility when there are such wide gaps between rich and poor, when half of England is owned by 1% of the population, when 1 in 3 children lives in poverty. As a policy objective, social mobility has failed. Switching our focus to social justice and wealth redistribution is far more likely to address those burning injustices across the nation.
Well, that's a statistic. 1 in 3 children live in poverty. Define poverty.
So this is not a new statistic. This has been around for quite a while, and it's something that actually we could look at.
But how much is it? What's poverty per week, per month, per annum?
We could look at the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, Philip Alston, because he
I don't believe the figure, by the way. Let me come at this a different way. You prove to me that figure's not a load of cobblers.
Well, it's a UN report.
No, but give me the money. Give me how much.
Just the answer for fact is it's 60% of median earnings. That's the definition.
Do we know what median earnings is? That 20-something thousand pounds?
Yeah.
27,
28,000.
So we're talking about 17,000 pound per annum, right? And that's poverty. Tell that to the pensioners watching this.
Nick, I feel like you're not really living in this country if you don't understand the rate of poverty that people are experiencing. I don't know, because you look up and down the country, Nick. We have people who are living in poverty. So what he has said is that this is a choice, that you know, one of the most frustrating things about looking at the level of hardship in this country, because we have an economy that isn't working for most people, and one of the most frustrating things about that is that sense of inevitability. It doesn't actually have to be that way. We can reprogram the economy to make it work in a way that is fairer for all people. And the reason, going back to my original subject, the reason that social mobility hasn't worked in the UK is that it has failed, is that you cannot have social mobility in a society where there is such...
Well, the Jeremy Corbyn Memorial Lecture is now over. I'm telling you this, £17,000 per annum. £17,000 per annum is not poverty. Well, I just honestly.
What is it he did not do that you're not happy with?
He maintained an economic system that exaggerated. No, I don't agree with a free market neoliberal system. It exaggerated inequalities. You'd have to listen to me. It's FT. The FT reported that during New Labour's rule,
so what system would you want?
There was inequality increased.
What system would you want?
This is the terrible thing about the Corbynistas. You want to bury Tony Blair,
but you
cannot bring yourselves to have the courage simply to say, we're Marxists, we want everything changed, let's kill it. Just say it. You might get an audience. I mean, don't pretend you're saying something that you're not.
I don't have a problem with Marxist economic systems.
Our fourth nomination is The Guardian newspaper. This left-wing smear merchant posted articles over the weekend when a neighbour of Boris Johnson allegedly sent them a recording of Boris and his partner having an argument after calling the police. I say allegedly because I have still not heard this recording. They have pushed the story like Boris has beat up his girlfriend when, as I said, the police attended, they found no issue, making it a dead cert that these people deserve Shit Weasel of the Week nomination. So, The Guardian, there you go. There's your first ever nomination. Now, the fifth nomination for Shit Weasel of the Week ties into the fourth nomination, and that's going to be the neighbours of Boris Johnson, Eve Lee and Tom Penn. These are the neighbours who recorded Boris Johnson's argument with his partner and sent it to the Guardian newspaper after calling the police and being told by the officers who attended that all were safe in the home and no crime had been committed. So, this was a politically motivated smear attempt by this Ramonin SOI Boy and his monstrous spunk trumpet, who are both Labour activists and Commissar Corbyn-off fanboys. And our sixth nomination this week will be the new Liberal Democrat MP, Chuka the Hooker Umuna. This leftist SOI Boy has been an MP for 3 different political parties in the last 4 months, earning him his name Chuka the Hooker, as he bounces from party to party like a true political prostitute. But what earned him his nomination this week was his refusal to hold a public vote in a by-election for his seat in Parliament that he won when he was a Labour MP, not the Liberal Democrat MP he currently is. All this while he sat there demanding a second referendum on Brexit, the hypocritical fuckpig. Let's check it out.
Have they asked you?
No, they haven't actually. And a large part of the reason that I joined the Liberal Democrats, other than the fact that obviously I'm a social democrat with liberal values, which are Liberal Democrat values, was because of Vince Cable, who I got to know very well when I was shadowing him in opposition. I was quite critical at the time of many of the things
you were, and don't worry. I've got all that here. Don't you worry.
He's a friend of I'm sure you have. Yeah. I'm sure. I'm waiting for the tweets to be brought up.
Well, we got one here, but this is the third political party in, as I say, almost as many months. Yeah. Your constituents must be a little bit confused by all this. They've got proper jobs. It's quite hard for them to keep track with which party you're in. Isn't it time to give them a people's vote?
Well, actually, my constituency scored the highest Remain vote in the country in the 2016 referendum. And actually, I think...
They didn't vote for you just for Remain, did they? They voted for you because you were Labour.
Hang on just a minute. If I just finished the thought, which is this, that I actually think that the way that the electorate is voting in elections and thinks about politics is less of a left-right thing. I think it is more of an open-closed thing. Now, my constituents are very open-minded. They're very internationalist, and
so a large part give them the vote.
Well,
they're smart and open-minded enough to in a by-election work out which party you're with and decide if they want to vote for you.
The main reason that people voted for me in Streatham is because of my position on Brexit. And when you can compare my performance in the last general election to the performance of Kate Hoey, for example, next door...
Well, let's look at what you said.
I got 15% more than Stowe since, for example, arguing for the reversal of cuts to housing benefit and universal credit. And if your concern is to end austerity, as it is mine, the best way of doing that is to ensure that we stay in the European Union. You cannot leave the European Union and end austerity.
Right, and I know that's
your view. What the two main parties are seeking to do.
Have you forgiven them?
I wouldn't quite put it like that. It's not something that I think... I wouldn't use that language, but what I would say...
did then.
What I would say is that things have changed, and there are lots of things that people's political parties do that they might think is unforgivable. A lot of people in the Labour Party think the Iraq War was unforgivable, but they're still in the Labour Party. But my point is, if the Liberal Democrats had the same fiscal position as they did in 2010, 2015, things would be very different, but they've changed.
All right.
Now, the 7th nomination for Shit Weasel of the Week was the SOI Boy Labour activist from the hard-left remoaning group Another Europe is Possible. This complete tit appeared on the Politics Live show, demanding a second referendum and labelling Boris Johnson extreme right-wing, earning him this nomination.
Labour, the Shadow Cabinet met yesterday to decide whether to back a wholehearted Remain position, and it wasn't entirely conclusive. There's a surprise. Let's speak to Michael Chesham. He's a Labour activist who wants the party to back Remain.
And we're going to deliver a huge mandate there for a clear anti-Brexit position, for unequivocal backing of freedom of movement, and for a radical programme to sort of transform Europe. So,
right.
I'm sorry. No, this isn't blood out of a stone. This is about me wanting to talk about the actual politics of the situation.
Yeah, but I'm trying to work out who's stopping you.
Well, fine, and I think you can ask whoever you want to give that answer. The important thing here is the politics of the situation. We're about to enter a period in which a conservative, a hard right-wing conservative prime minister is going to try to drag us out of the EU without a deal or on a hard deal basis, with no mandate, and we have to resist that, and Labour has to resist that. That's the political discussion that we need to be having here.
And what you want in response to that, as I understand, I think you're on the record, is a summer of mass occupations, disruptive protests, and wildcat strike action. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Look, I think we are now in a position where a hard deal Brexit... We need to be clear about what a hard deal or a no deal Brexit means.
No, we know what that is. I'm asking you what your actions are going to be. Do you think that wildcat strike action...
I'm really more than happy to get to it.
Or mass occupation...
Yes, you're right. You know that I'm on the record, so why are you interrupting me?
Do you think that's a way to win hearts and minds?
Well, I mean, actually, there is a long tradition in Britain of protest, of disruptive, of quite radical protest, when governments take decisions in a completely unaccountable way. We're about to enter a period where we're going to get an extreme right-wing Tory Prime Minister trying to wreck communities and open up the NHS to privatisation via trade deals with Trump's America, with almost no, in fact, no popular mandate. Under those circumstances, I think people have the right to take civil disobedience and to take all non-violent action that they can to attempt to disrupt that extreme agenda.
I understand.
And our eighth and final nomination is going to be the US Democratic representative from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who decided it would be a good idea to label illegal immigrant detention centres in the southern United States concentration camps, while using the Never Again slogan aimed at preventing another Holocaust. She went on to say that her words were not directed at the Holocaust, which clearly they was if you're using the Never Again slogan, you fucking liar. So, here is your first nomination.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border, and that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something. And that the fact that concentration camps are now an institutionalized practice in the home of the free is extraordinarily disturbing. And we need to do something about it. This week, immigrant children were moved to the same internment camps where the Japanese were held in the earlier 20th century. And this is not even about a crisis this is not just about the immigrant communities being held in concentration camps being a crisis. This is a crisis for ourselves. This is a crisis on if America will remain America in its actual principles and values, or if we are losing to an authoritarian and fascist presidency. And so I think that is, I don't use those words lightly. I don't use those words to just throw bombs. I use that word because that is what an administration that creates concentration camps is. A presidency that creates concentration camps is fascist. And it's very difficult to say that.
And so there we have our 8 nominations for this week. Number 1 was Ian Blackford. Number 2 was David Lammy. Number 3 was Rachel Sharby. Number 4 was The Guardian newspaper. Number 5, Boris Johnson's neighbours Tim Penn and Eve Lee. Number 6 was Chuka the Hooker Amuna. Number 7, Labour SOI Boy activist from Another Europe is Possible. And 8th was the socialist spunk trumpet Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Once again, we had a lot of true shitweasel behaviour from all the nominees, and from those who did not make the final shortlist. As always, there's plenty of shitweasels to look through, but these 8 truly stood out to me, and to you guys obviously by your votes in the live stream. Now the list is, as we all know, endless. So, without further ado, the winner of this week's shitweasel of the week is, let me get a drum roll please. And we have our first tie, as the only clear winners for this had to be the neighbours of Boris Johnson, Eve Lee and Tim Penn, and their co-conspirators, The Guardian newspaper, who perpetuated a smear campaign against the Conservative Party leadership candidate, essentially placing him in the same category as someone who beats up his wife. The neighbours had sent, as I said before, a claimed recording of Boris and his partner having a domestic row to The Guardian. They did this after calling the police and being assured by the same police officers that everyone was safe in the house and nothing had happened, because of course this whole thing was politically motivated smear attempt. Now I mean, no one has actually heard this recording yet except the left-wing media, making them both, in my opinion, equally worthy winners. So congratulations, you are both shitweasels of the week, you dirty smear merchants. So I'm going to end it there, guys. I'll thank you all for watching. Remember to comment below with the hashtag SWOTW for your nominations for next week if they're already there, or for later on you can just comment on any of my later videos and I will see them. Now please like and share this video, as YouTube likely won't promote it, so every like, comment and share will really help. And I'll catch you all in the next video.